Let's talk about bad language. Now, bad language is an interesting subject because kind of like cropping is an extremely difficult thing to master in terms of understanding what is a natural bad language. When you're watching a movie and you have frames, following one another, and there's emotion, bad language is not really that of a problem because you're not focusing on one frame. The problem with photography, the problem with renders, with anything that's a still image, is that you're going to get stuck with one frame, and the longer you look at it, the more problems you will be able to see. So if you're shooting people, but also when you're shooting, for example, some robots, androids, anything that could move, even cars or trucks, whatever, right? You need to understand that they have a bad language, which means there is an angle at which an angle and position at which they look very pleasing. So for example, if you look at this image, that took us quite a few shots to get it right because the framing is very difficult. It's actually breaking the rules because she's closer to the right hand side than the left hand side, but the entire body is important, not just the face. It's not a portrait. It's not a headshot, but it's a portrait of the entire body. So the entire body is actually a subject supported by this beautiful negative space, and here as well, right? And the body language here looks very natural. She doesn't look strained or fake or artificial or weird. Body language is very easy to spot on pictures when people are trying to smile, and I see this all the time. Smile is a very difficult thing to photograph, and if a smile is not natural, you will see that it just looks fake and weird. So I have a few pictures of people smiling, although I'm not really, very keen on this kind of imagery. But let me show you a very good example of there you go. That's a natural smile, right? You can see that the muscles are stretched naturally, eyes are squinted. That's a natural smile. But occasionally you see on, especially like portraits and headshots, people have this kind of a weird face expression, like a faced or fake smile. That's a basically fake or like very strained body language. That's a natural smile, okay? Very, very relaxed, right? And you can relate to it because it simply looks natural. But occasionally you'll see in photos, I mean, you're not gonna see that in my photos because I hate that kind of a thing. I'm very peculiar and sort of very detailed, and I'm literally anal on body language, okay? I pay great attention to it, and I like my pictures to look natural as possible. So any face expression you find in my photos, they're gonna look just as if you just seen them in real life. Body language doesn't apply only to models and humans. You can apply to all kinds of things. For example, if we're going to take this image here, it's not just that humans have bad language. Everything can have bad language. And if you start thinking about your models, whether it's a ship or a truck or whatever, they have bad language and an angle, then you'll start understanding how to shoot them in a different way. Okay, so if I think about it as a bird, okay, or as some kind of a creature, I want to shoot it in an angle that's going to be the most pleasing and sort of interesting, right? And showing the design, but at the same time look natural and balanced, sort of graceful, not awkward and weird. Right? So you need to find an angle that looks natural and balanced and sort of flows, okay? And, that's basically the secret to finding a correct body language for your models. But I would highly recommend studying good photography and, good portraiture, and study, for example, I hate ballet, but, you could study very good ballet and poses because that's what's look natural. It looks balanced, okay? You need to think of anything that has a harmony in it, and you need to look at harmony of elements. So the way you look at the frame, you need to look at your object, okay? So the frame has a balance, the object has a balance. If the object has a balance, then you can create a frame with a balance. But if you're gonna have a weird or awkward body language in your model, then it's gonna be very difficult to frame it properly because the model itself is gonna look awkward and weird, kind of like unnatural. Something's gonna be wrong. And your brain will literally tell you that. Look at your own pictures or pictures you've taken of your friends, whatever, and find frames that you think that look weird. That's gonna tell you whether the body language is good or not. So the way we shoot or we frame or we create renders is that we want to render as many times as we have to until we're going to find that sweet spot, okay, between the perfect framing and the perfect body language. So again, you need both. You need really good body language and you need really good framing. You need really good composition and all that, right? So body language would greatly impact the final outcome of your image, okay? It's really, really important. Every single element is important. You need to have a flow, okay? A very smooth flow. Kind of like if you poured water over it, you just have to see it kind of cascading very gently down without any obstacles, okay? Imagine there's an energy flowing around here. You want it to be very smooth and flowy. No obstacles, no barriers, no nothing, okay? That's how you could understand body language, right? So the only way to get better at this is to simply practice. But you also need to understand, what's graceful and what's balanced. So taking into consideration all these elements we've been learning about, like for example, visual weight, lines, off-centering, odds, cropping, negative space, etc. They're all important, right? So you need to take them all into consideration when you just, designing a body language, which is why, it's difficult to find a good photographer for portraiture because most people just, again, don't see that. They're not really sensitive to body language, and not just the entire body, but I'm even talking about face expressions, angles, etc. So all of these elements are essential. And coming back to 3D, it's applying the same way. You can apply it to any type of art and any type of an object. Doesn't have to be a human, okay? So the way to study that would be to basically, keep trying and think consciously about creating balance between different elements, angles, lines, details, etc. within the object, and try to find an angle at which, it looks really, really pleasing to the eye and everything kind of flows and makes sense, right? This would be my advice to you on body language.